Welcome to the first episode of the new Rack Junkies podcast in the new studio with the new cameras, with the new lighting, everything. I'm still working on it, but now the podcast started getting so big so quick with just audio that I had to make some changes and essentially really invest in doing this. Now, I want to make it clear that this podcast is not going to be like any other ones. There's a lot of great hunting podcasts out there. I've been on a lot of them. I like them, but there's a lot of them. And what I do is a little bit different. I'm not going to talk about, I went out hunting this buck and let me tell you about my family and let me tell let me tell you about hunting camp. There's people that are better at that than I am. And so I'm not going to try to be those people. I want to, with this podcast, I want to essentially get into more of the deeper discussions of hunting. A lot of you that follow me on Rack Junkies Facebook page, we get hundreds of millions of views, and that indicates to me that people really want that type of content. But there's not a ton of that content on the podcast platforms. Obviously Steve Ranella with Meat Eater, he does a lot of that, or some of that. But it's more geared around guests. Where what I'm going to do is with my writing, no matter what topic I'm covering, whether it's CWD or it's, looking into the Missouri Department of Conservation or the NGO scams like, the National Deer Association, or corner crossing in Montana. That was huge, by the way. I've never received so many phone calls from ordinary people in my life. 406 area code. Shout out to you guys in Montana. Took over 200 phone calls in 2 weeks from just regular people in Montana giving me tips on what's going on in your political system. And I think I bring that one up specifically right now because it's a great example of what I'm going to do. I received so much information from Montana and just all of the people telling me about, well, hey, look, this is what the governor's doing. This is what that guy's doing. Here, look into this person, look into that person, look at this land swap and that land swap. There's a lot of things that are incredibly shady, that are incredible. I mean, it would just blow you away, the things that I heard that I can't completely confirm. And since what I do is I write short form on Facebook, 1 or 2 paragraphs, I can't always say the challenge to doing it that way. Let me word it this way. The challenge to doing that short form writing is you don't get to clarify everything. People don't have very long attention spans on social media, so it's hard for me to, if I write 10 paragraphs, nobody reads it. If I write 1 or 2, I can get people to read it. But this is more of a long form content platform, and a lot of my followers want that. Well, with Montana, I could have gotten into some of the more crazy things that I heard, but couldn't completely confirm. So I can I can kind of elaborate on that. Like, I even hesitate to do this. This is the craziest one. But I had about 4 people that told me this, and another one that alluded to it, but was very almost scared to say anything about the Yellowstone Club and what goes on up there. Essentially telling me, and again, I couldn't completely confirm this, and I don't even know who's part of the Yellowstone Club. I know it's there's politicians and those sorts of things. It's a very ritzy place. And I know very little about it, except for what I've been told, there's some very bad things happening. And I see this a lot in just, public life. I'll just say what it is. Some people told me that it is more of a Epstein type of place. I can't confirm that, so I'm not going to write about that on Facebook. I can, however, come on here and say, hey, look, this is what I'm being told. I don't know if it's entirely true or not, but these are the allegations. And it's not just one person. It was 4 separate people saying, girls coming back drugged, people not remembering what happens when they go up there. But from my perspective, I can't just accuse anybody of that, because that'd be wrong to the people that are there without real evidence. But there is a pattern. And I think that it is important to not back down and not say, hey, listen, 2 things can be true at once. One is I don't want to accuse anybody specific of something that I don't know for sure they did. At the same time, if there's these accusations floating around, I think it's also important for people to know that. Because if the things that I were told are true and I didn't say anything, I would feel really bad if it came out that this stuff was true. I really would. So I think that a more long-form platform like this allows me to kind of discuss those things, show you, hey, look, yes, this is what we know, this is what we don't know, and get into some detail. That way I'm not, slandering anybody. I don't ever want to accuse people of something that they haven't done. But at the same time, when you get that many allegations, it's also important for people to realize and be made aware of that. I think both parties need to be made aware of that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a lot of like solo episodes where I discuss those things in depth. Probably looks like it'll probably be half and half once I get this really going, where I'll discuss the more in-depth research or investigations or whatever I'm doing that week will be one podcast episode. And then I'm also going to have some guests on, but not like your normal guests. I will have some of them on, but a lot of the guests I want to have on here, I want to interview some people from my comment section. There's people that I go back and forth with on Facebook that disagree with me, that tell me I'm wrong about things. I want to have some of those people on. I enjoy the disagreements. I enjoy getting to the root cause of why we disagree and maybe help give some clarification to both sides. I learn from the debate. From this is how I am. I know it's super popular on social media to be like, well, let's come together. Let's see what we agree on. Let's talk about what we agree on. Okay, fine. Yeah, you guys can all do that. I want to know what we disagree on and why. What do we disagree about? And let's really dig down into the root cause of that disagreement. Whether that's the NGO scam, I still have people defending the National Deer Association, albeit very, very few people. There's one or two. It's probably a bad example. CWD is a better example because there are still probably 10 to 20% of the hunting industry that will defend the CWD policies. I want those people to come on, my friend Daryl, I think his name's pronounced Radijek. I've actually only talked to him on private messenger and in the comments, and he's a bear biologist, smart guy. I just think he's wrong about a lot. And he thinks the same thing about me. So I'd love to have guys like him on. He has a podcast, like that. I want to have an anti-hunter on here. Anti-hunters spam my comment sections. I'm trying to get one that's actually intelligent and articulate. That can be a challenge because a lot of the times their arguments are just centered around emotions. And they just, it's hard to have a real conversation with somebody that's arguing on emotion and not like logic and reason. It makes it tough. But there are some of them out there that have a perspective, and I want to find them and I want to interview them on here. I think that would actually be super interesting. I've never listened to a hunting podcast that had an anti-hunter on it discussing things, and I really want to do that. I want to have just some of the regular people from my comment section. There's some interesting people out there that are just your average everyday hunters. They're not in media. They're not, and let me tell you why I get here. I like the Theo Vaughn podcast episodes where he has like lunch lady on, right? Or female truck driver, or, New York City trash pickup guy. Like those are the best episodes. It's just, and again, I'm not probably as, I'm definitely not as good of an interviewer as he is, but I think that we could have some fun with those episodes as well and give you something different to listen to from a podcast perspective, YouTube, all of that. And again, I just want to have people on here that disagree with me. It's important to discuss those things. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing on these solo episodes is talking about the things that I'm investigating, I'm looking into. And most people don't know, but I've been working on writing a book for a long time, and I'm trying to have it done by this deer season. I have a big topic that I've been writing about recently that is inspired by one of the chapters in my book, and it's built around all of the essentially the non-hunters that are starting to overtake the hunting industry. Now, this is happening through the university systems, through the game agencies, because universities and government, like they're kind of like the same thing. You need, in the private sector, if you're smart, intelligent, and skilled, you can get a job without a degree. In the, government, you get the job if you have the degree and the resume, and it doesn't matter if you're smart, right? Like you can be the person that's just good at memorizing. Which, this is me, by the way. I was a straight A student in school. I didn't try because I was really good at memorizing. So there's a lot of that in the hunting industry now, where it's some liberal chick from the inner city that just was good in school and liked her science teacher and thinks that the right move is just to go to college. So she goes to college, gets a science degree. Well, what are you going to do with a science degree? It's not a marketable skill. There's not like a 4-year college degree, 13th through 16th grade, and some extra classes on photosynthesis doesn't make you valuable in the free market. It might be a 4-year IQ test to show people like, hey, this person isn't completely dumb. They can read books and tell you what is in it. But it doesn't give you a marketable skill in today's day and age. So you go into government. And where do biologists go in government? Game agencies. So more and more our game agencies, and this isn't true for everybody. I hate saying that. I hate when I have to be like, I'm not saying. I say what I say, okay? But again, you kind of have to sometimes. A lot of people that do get into the game agencies are hunters. They care about wildlife, even if we disagree sometimes. They still do have genuinely good intentions. I think that's true for a lot of people. And it's even true for a lot of people that have good intentions that aren't hunters that get into this. They love animals. They love, but they're not hunters. They're not attached to my hunting heritage. They're not attached to what I grew up doing. They're not attached to the hunting culture. And it really feels to me like, when someone tells you how to parent, right? Like just that really annoying mom on the baseball team that's like, what you should really be doing? Your son should be going to bed at this time. Or, hey, your son needs to put his bat down. That just happened. Hey, lady, stop. Go away. Not your place. And that's kind of how I feel about a lot of these people getting into the hunting industry, the government side of it, that don't have any connection. And I know I've talked about this. This is a bit of an old story. I don't want to go into it a lot, but the one lady who's in charge of policy for the National Deer Association, she wasn't a hunter. She got a college degree. Like, this is perfectly explained. She perfectly explains what I'm talking about. I even forget her name because it's been a month or two since I wrote about her. But she got a job working for the governor straight out, or the lieutenant governor, I believe, right out of college, making policy around hunting and in outdoors. And it was like, wait, what? She's never even hunted at this point. Then she starts working for the National Deer Association in a really good job. Obviously she's politically connected because, she went through the university system straight to the, into the NGO scam that is in our government. And the National Deer Association is part of the NGO, non-government organization scam that is full of government money. Non-government organizations that are funded by the government, it's an oxymoron. It's not a real thing. They are government agencies, even if they're not labeled as such. But their head of policy shot her first deer when she started working for the National Deer Association. Why is it that she, who's not this lady's not attached to anything hunting related, is telling us what to do? I have a real problem with that. I don't like the university system infiltrating. And again, there's people coming through the university system that are hunters. Like my friend Daryl Radijek. I wish I knew how to pronounce his name right. He's a bear biologist. He's a hunter. He comes from that. That's fine. Even though we disagree, I just have a real problem with this now, and that's a chapter in my book. And it leads me into what I wanted to talk about today and the research I'm doing this week. This week's posts for my 7:30 post, for those that follow the Facebook page, I write about my investigative stuff, the research stuff, the more complex things that take me most of my day, is all in one post at the end of the day. The earlier stuff is a little bit quicker, easier content to do. Now, what I did is, in researching for the book, was say, okay, what's some of the dumb research that hunters definitely wouldn't do if they were here? Right, so there's certain research that's done. I knew it had to be out there. when you have these people that aren't associated with hunting, they're gonna come up with really dumb ideas. So I started looking into that, and I found some doozies. Let me tell you that. The first one that was, and my label on this is the wasted wildlife research dollars. The first one was, do dogs scare geese? I'm going to pause for dramatic effect there because I know everybody listening is sitting on the edge of their seat waiting to find out, do dogs scare geese? This is real research, okay? And again, on my post on Facebook, you can look up, I cite the studies and everything. The answer, again, keeping you waiting, yes, dogs do in fact scare geese. So this study was basically, they said, okay, we're going to put an invisible fence, and they spent over $50,000 on this study. Let's put a fence, an electric fence, an invisible fence around a property that has a pond with some geese on it. And we're going to let 2 border collies run around and see if the dogs will in fact scare the geese. And, I think that these researchers think everything needs to be peer reviewed. It doesn't. You can use your brain from time to time. You can use some common sense in science. I know scientists have a tough time with common sense. What they found, the big discovery in this study was that if the dogs are on your property and they scare the geese, wait for it, they end up on your neighbor's property. That's right. I know. You guys are blown away by that, aren't you? Now, that's not the only one, right? I got some more here. Because scientists, they love to find out what scares the animals. Why? Because they want to reduce, it's always the exact same reasoning. Well, we need to reduce the conflicts with humans. Oh, I got an idea. You shoot the goose, and guess what? It's not going to be in conflict with anybody. If there's too many geese, shoot the geese. And guess what? Also, wildlife is part of things that we just have to be around. I don't care if the goose is pooping on somebody's lawn. If, that's nature. That's reality. I know that people struggle with reality sometimes, but it is in fact reality. So they tried to study some other things. There's a couple coyote studies, wolf studies. I know people love coyotes and wolves. Researchers decided, you know what we're going to do? Let's find out if little red flags scare coyotes and wolves. Again, I know you guys are waiting on the edge of your seat to find out if little red plastic flags scare coyotes and wolves. Well, researchers who spent, let's check notes, over $100,000. That was just the grant money I could find. When you add everything up, it could have been as much as $250,000 on this study. They put up flags and then put up trail cams and watched the coyotes and the wolves. Well, what do you think happened? The coyotes walked right past. That's right. Little red flags do not scare coyotes. Now, anybody who's hunted would have already known that. And they'd also know the other big discovery part of this because wolves acted a little differently. And if you're a hunter, you're probably going, well, yeah, I bet. What do you think happened? Ask yourself that right now before I even say anything, because maybe this is just something I know and it isn't common sense. The wolves would see it, they'd watch it, look at the flags, be a little weary of it for a day, maybe 2, and then go on past. Well, anybody who's been a deer hunter, you don't put up, like putting up a big deer stand like right before deer season, like the day before or like the day of, and you hop in it. If you're going to set a stand the day you're hunting in it, you're probably putting it way up high. It's probably some sort of saddle or platform, and you're running up that tree real quick and trying to get it real high. Because when you add something new to the environment that those animals are in, they're going to notice. They notice their surroundings. You know why? And maybe some scientists can do some peer review research here. Do animals have eyes and see things? Well, yeah, they do. And when they see something new, they'll look at it, see if it's going to be a threat, and then they'll go around it, and it won't bother them anymore, right? This is what we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on. And that's exactly their big finding here, was that wolves, in fact, would walk up and just, kind of observe, just like any other animal. Coyotes were a little bit more bold. They just kind of see it and go, yeah, that's not a threat, and just go on by. So there's $250,000 down the tubes. They also, with coyotes, this was another, I'm not even going to go into this whole thing. This is incredibly stupid. Researchers thought it would be a good idea to check if throwing weighted tennis balls at coyotes would scare coyotes. Also, would running and yelling at coyotes, would that scare coyotes? To reduce human conflict. Well, breaking news, when you run at a coyote and yell at it, it runs away into the woods. If you throw a weighted tennis ball at a coyote, again, it will run into the woods. Now, I actually forgot to write down all the exact statistics from this study, but what they did was they trained like thousands of people that did like, I think 3,000 patrols walking around. Like they're just walking around. They trained, or no, I think they trained 176 people. I forget the exact numbers, but this is a peer-reviewed study. They trained all these people that were volunteers. They didn't have to pay them, or the study would have been insanely expensive. And these people walked around the town, right outside the town, looking for coyotes. And when they saw coyotes, they either threw a weighted tennis ball at it or ran at it, just rah, right? Like, get out of here, coyote. What do you think that coyote did? Well, if you've hunted ever, you know exactly what the coyote did. The coyote hopped off, ran away into the woods, and then it came back later. This is common sense stuff. Again, the scientific community sometimes, when they don't hunt, they don't have that common sense. They don't understand wildlife. And so we got to peer review everything, which is incredibly stupid. Now, obviously those studies didn't work, but what about elk? This one gets real good. The scientists, this peer-reviewed study, I can't remember how much this one cost. It was, again, another one that cost, $100,000 plus. They decided, I can just imagine this. Like, just think about this. You have a bunch of scientists sitting in their university with beakers and lab coats on going, hey, man, there's elk that people are complaining about. How are we going to take care of it? And it's just some like a group of people that grew up on the inner city sitting around talking to each other like, what if we scared them? And then another one looks at him and goes, what if the other one across the aisle, right? This liberal girl I was talking about earlier, she goes, hey, what if we took hockey sticks and we waved them around and we yelled at the elk? What do you think would happen then? And another one goes, hey, what if we attached flags to it and made it even more scary for the elk? Could we get the elk to be scared? Well, what were the results? The elk got scared and ran away. Now, they were trying to study, the study was supposed to be about, well, is the scaring of the elk going to lead to the elk just leaving forever? Well, of course not. Anybody who hunts knows this. If you've hunted deer, elk, or anything, I grew up deer hunting. When you're hunting during gun season, we're shooting guns at them. We're literally killing them and shooting deer. And you know what they do? They run away, and then they come back. They're a little more weary for a couple of days. If you stop hunting for a week or so, those deer are a lot more likely to just come back. What they found, the end results were there was nothing of any significance that helped out in any way to reduce these elk coming into the town. Now, the bigger problem with this is, even if, I don't understand how you do a study like this and look at it and go, even if let's say for some reason, like they discovered this brand new thing that, man, elk are just way more scared of hockey sticks than anything else. Let's say that their idea just for whatever reason, right, is unlikely and silly as it sounds, actually worked. Well, how's that going to help? Are we going to employ hundreds of people to run around town with hockey sticks with flags attached to them, yelling at elk all the time? So literally, this was never going to go anywhere. And I understand, I will still, and trust me, when you see these things, these clips going viral, and you read the comments, you'll have people defending this research. You will. The scientists, because the scientific community has a real problem with common sense. You can use your brain. I assure you, it is capable of using your brain, but when you don't come from a perspective of being a hunter, growing up in the woods, growing up around these things, you're going to end up wasting a lot of research dollars peer reviewing whether or not hockey sticks scare elk, whether weighted tennis balls and yelling at elk or coyotes is going to scare them, and then if they're going to come back. Or what was the first one? I forget this one already. Oh, yeah. Do dogs scare geese, right? Like, I mean, any 9-year-old with a dog in a place that has geese knows that dogs scare geese, right? Right? I mean, and the crazy thing about that study was they found that if they took away the dogs, the geese came back. If they left the dogs there, the geese stayed on your neighbor's property. Breaking news, everybody. I hope you're all more intelligent for having known that. Everything does not need to be peer-reviewed. Now, again, there was a couple more. I want to get into one more, which is just, it's not the silly, like, stupid thing. It is incredibly weird, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that with these people that have these degrees, and the scientific community, and the problem I have with them is the lack of common sense. There's a lot of people out there, and I think even a lot of the scientists, and some of the scientists I know agree with this, that these intellectual types, and I hesitate to call someone with a 4-year degree an intellectual, or even a master's degree. If you're a researcher or something, maybe, if you have a PhD. But even with that, this group of people that have college degrees can a lot of times be book smart, and this is me. Okay, like I'm book smart. I can read and I can learn, and that's how I do it. I was a straight A student in school. I didn't even try, and the reason I was able to be a straight A student is I had a good memory. In my family, there's 5 kids. I'm the oldest, and I was the smart brother. Right? I had the best grades. I didn't try in school and still just A's all over the place, because I know that school is just, hey, here's the answers. Hey guys. Here, it's Monday. This is what we're going to talk about this week. Okay? All right? Read this chapter. Then they give you a worksheet saying, fill in the blank. Here's the answers. And on Friday, surprise, surprise, I'm going to ask you for the answers that I just gave you. That is 90% of school, is they give you the answers, then they ask you for the answers. I have a good memory. So I would just read the answers, and on Friday, they would give you the test, and you just write down the answers. 100%. A+. Easy. Did you do your homework? Did you fill in the blank? And then did you fill in the blank without looking? That's all school was. You don't have to learn anything to get good grades. So when people tell me they get good grades, I don't think that necessarily makes you smart. When you have a college degree, it doesn't necessarily make you smart. It just means you have a memory. Now, I want to make sure that I'm clear that the people that there's an opposite side to this too. I run into people all the time that are like, oh, I got bad grades just because I got bored in school. No, you were stupid. Sorry. It's if you were stupid. Yeah, I hate to tell you that. I hate to break it to you, but again, I don't mean to piss everybody off. I just tend to have that effect on people, so I apologize. But it brings me to the more broad point here. Obviously, I just explained myself. I was a straight A student. I don't think that makes me smart. I think that my ability I think other things make me smart. And, memorization and those things are part of intelligence, but you also do need common sense. The dumb brother in my family, John Mark, he was easily the dumb brother. I mean, he struggled to graduate, right? Like for me, graduation, I just got straight A's. He struggled to graduate. He was a dumb brother. But also at the same time, if we go out, if my mom's tractor needs fixed, he's going to go out there, or if, he's operating cranes, spent 8 years in the Marines. If something needs to be pulled apart and fixed, he's better at that than me. He has a different type of intelligence. And that's, I think that having multiple types of intelligence is important. And the thing that I'm seeing in the hunting community, to bring it full circle, is that the people running the game agencies have one type of intelligence, memorization and regurgitation, which doesn't necessarily make you smart. And they don't have a connection to the land. They don't have, in many cases, they waste research dollars trying to prove things that we already know. Common sense things. The intellectual class can lack common sense, and the people who sit there and talk about how, I was smart, I just got bad grades, and are really dumb. A lot of them have some common sense. They just don't have, intelligence. They're not smart. They're not book smart. And both things are required. You need to have some book smarts, and you need to have common sense to be a smart person. Okay, so if you're lacking one, and man, this shouldn't be controversial, but it might be. Most people, I've found, a lot of people aren't very smart. If that offends you? Well, again, I just have that effect on people. So I want to get to not just something that is incredibly dumb from scientific research, because there's actually there's not. This is pretty dumb too. This is my favorite one. Researchers peer-reviewed a study where they decided that they were going to use an abortion bio-bullet for deer. Now, this bio-bullet isn't something that they shoot the deer with. They're basically giving a deer an abortion. So researchers decided, let's give deer some abortion drugs and kill the fetus. Well, what happened? Well, yeah, the fetus comes out, and I think 4 out of 6 of them chewed up and ate their own fetus. And they thought that this would be a good idea to research for population control. We're going to abort baby deer to control the population. Now, make of that what you will if you're a real political type on, the abortion topic and whether or not that's meant to suppress certain people and, limit population growth of certain demographics. I've heard those cases before, but I'm not going to get into the politics of that. I want to stay on the hunting side where we're giving deer abortions. This is dumber than when they're giving deer vasectomies in New York, which they're still currently doing, by the way. If you don't know this is an old story. In New York, they give on Staten Island or something. I don't know. I'm not a New Yorker. They're giving deer vasectomies. They've been doing it for like 10 years. They spend $500,000 a year giving deer vasectomies, and it doesn't work. It's just a couple of bucks running around having the time of their lives. Okay, imagine that. Imagine if you're the only dude and just a house full of chicks, and all the other dudes are just incapable of hooking up with those chicks. I mean, especially as an animal. I mean, like you get a couple weeks out of the year that, I mean, you're just running yourself ragged. That's. I mean, listen, good for them, I guess. But anyways. The deer abortion. Let's get back on track. The deer abortion. They gave some of the deer abortions in early stages, and what happened was they just got reimpregnated. Then they gave deer abortions that were later on through abortion drugs, and they expelled the deer. They ate the fetuses most of the time, and what did they find? Well, nothing. That research wasn't meant for anything. Anybody with common sense, any researcher with common sense knows, hey, we don't need to research deer abortion. If that's controversial, I'm sorry. We just have fundamental disagreements at this point. It was never going to reduce the deer population. They didn't even try to do it, to be honest with you, because how are you going to catch a bunch of deer? What are you going to do? Catch a bunch of deer with nets, give them abortion drugs, kill their fetus, and then just what? Like what's the point of it? There was no point to this research. And this is what kind of, I think, drives a lot of the average people crazy, because these dollars should be going towards things that help habitat, that help habitat specifically. There should be more money moved from research to habitat improvements. That's that. I don't think that shouldn't be controversial, but again, the scientific community will get mad at me for that. But what's new? But anyways, that I think, and it also here, I also let me just end it by saying this. I want to know because a lot of these anti-hunters who want to do things like deer vasectomies and, the deer abortions and those sorts of things, they tend to be pro-abortion. So I kind of, but they're anti-hunting. These anti-hunters that are, okay, let me try and clarify this a little more. Not everybody who's a hunter is a leftist. But every anti-hunter, how should I say this? I'm screwing this up. So let me try to backtrack and say this in a more clear way. Not every hunter, some hunters are on the left, but every anti-hunter is on the left. I hope you guys, I hope I'm saying that clearly. So, and the left largely believes that, abortion's okay, reproductive rights. What's the argument here on the abortion side for deer? If you're an anti-hunter and pro-abortion, I don't understand how you can be on both sides of that. Somebody make that make sense to me. It seems like you could only be one of those two things to me. But again, I'd love to hear how the mental gymnastics that people employ to maintain their beliefs is fascinating to me, to say the least. But to end this podcast off, this first ever podcast with audio and video, that'll be going on YouTube. Clips will be on Facebook. I just wanted to reiterate that this isn't going to be your typical type of podcast. If you made it this far, you already know that. I'm going to be discussing real things going on, things that nobody's talking about. I'm not going to be necessarily talking about my hunting trips and, all the filler content and talking about I enjoy those things as much as the next guy, but there's a bunch of them out there, and it's just the market's saturated, and this is what I enjoy. Now, to end it off, I want to just be a millennial for a second. Like and subscribe. It really helps. Sorry for that, guys. That is the most annoying thing I will do on any podcast, but it does help. So please help. And comment. Also, remember that if you're commenting on my posts, or if you want to get your perspective put on the podcast, comment on the on Facebook and on YouTube. I'm going to read all the YouTube comments. I know the YouTube channel is only like 30,000 people, but I will read all the YouTube comments. So that's the best way to do it. But also the podcast clips that are going on the Rack Junkies Facebook page. Follow those. The hunting news. I own DeLong Lures. I don't have sponsors still. I'm not entirely against sponsors, but for right now, I want to be able to say everything I want to say. And when you start bashing, game agencies and the bad behavior that's in the hunting industry, sponsors tend to not want to be with you. I've turned down a bunch of them. And maybe in the future, I will take on a sponsor here or there. I've considered it if it's the right fit, but, I've turned down a lot of money with hundreds of millions of views and well over 1 million followers, almost 1.5 million now. You can make a lot of money on sponsorships, and I've just turned it down so that nobody controls what I say, because I love my freedom to say what I want to say and to look into whatever I want to look into way more than I care about money. So please help like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next week.